There's a moment in every empath's life that looks like destruction, but feels like freedom. It happens quietly. No warning, no ceremony. One day you're pouring yourself into everyone else's cup, and the next, you're watching it all burn down while sipping tea. Not because you've become cold, not because you've lost your gift, but because something deeper has shifted, and the old rules simply don't apply anymore. If you're enjoying this conversation, hit that subscribe button and drop a like. It helps more people find content like this. So what actually happens on the day an empath stops caring? And why does everyone treat it like some dark transformation when it's actually the most liberating thing that can happen to a deeply feeling person? Let's start with what most people get wrong. When we talk about empaths stopping caring, we're not describing someone who's shut down emotionally or built walls around their heart. We're talking about something far more nuanced: the death of conditional compassion. For years, maybe decades, the empath has been operating under an unspoken contract. I feel everything you feel, therefore I must fix everything you're going through. That's the trap. That's the cage they didn't even know they were building around themselves. The typical empath journey looks something like this. They start out as the family therapist at age 7, the friend who always knows when something's wrong, the partner who can sense a mood shift from 3 rooms away. They pride themselves on this sensitivity, and why wouldn't they? It's a genuine gift. But here's where it gets complicated. Society doesn't just celebrate this gift, it exploits it. Suddenly the empath isn't just feeling deeply. They're responsible for managing everyone else's emotional weather patterns. They become the dumping ground, the free therapist, the emotional support animal for every person in their orbit. And they do it. They show up. They hold space. They sacrifice their own needs because someone else's pain feels urgent and their own feels negotiable. This goes on for years until one day, that day, something inside them just stops. Not breaks, stops. Like a machine that's been running nonstop, finally powering down. And in that silence, they hear something they haven't heard in forever: their own voice. This is what spiritual teachers and psychologists call the final stage of awakening for empaths, though it rarely gets talked about in mainstream conversations. Why? Because it looks selfish to people who've benefited from the empath's endless giving. When you've had access to someone's boundless emotional labor, their sudden withdrawal feels personal. It feels like rejection. But here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. The empath's awakening isn't about you. It's not a punishment or a statement. It's survival. What triggers this shift? Usually, it's not one catastrophic event, but rather 1,000 paper cuts that finally add up. The friend who only calls when they need something. The family member who treats you like an emotional garbage disposal. The partner who loves your empathy but resents your needs. The empath keeps giving and giving until they're running on fumes. And then one day they look in the mirror and don't recognize the exhausted stranger staring back. But here's where it gets interesting. The day they stop caring isn't actually about stopping care at all. It's about redirecting it. For the first time in their lives, they're including themselves in the circle of compassion. They're asking a revolutionary question. What if my feelings mattered as much as everyone else's? What if my energy was finite and precious? What if saying no wasn't cruelty, but clarity? This is the awakening. The empath realizes that feeling everything doesn't mean fixing everything. They understand that holding space for someone's pain doesn't require drowning in it. They learn the difference between empathy and enmeshment, between compassion and codependency. And once you see that difference, you can't unsee it. Now the people around them, they panic. The empath who used to bend over backwards is suddenly setting boundaries. The person who never said no is now saying it regularly. The endless well of patience has limits. And to people who've grown comfortable with unlimited access, this feels like the empath has become cold, hardened, or worse, fake. You've changed, they'll say, and they're right. But they say it like an accusation when it's actually a celebration. What's fascinating from a psychological standpoint is that this transformation often mirrors the stages of grief. The empath grieves the version of themselves they thought they had to be. They mourn the relationships that can't survive their newfound boundaries. They sit with the guilt that comes from prioritizing their own well-being. And then, if they can push through all of that, They arrive somewhere entirely new, not hardened, not closed off, but discerning, selective, intentional with their energy. There's a concept in Buddhist philosophy called idiot compassion, the kind of compassion that actually enables suffering rather than alleviating it. When you constantly rescue someone from the consequences of their actions, you're not helping them grow, you're keeping them dependent. The awakened empath understands this on a cellular level. They stop participating in cycles that hurt both parties. They stop lighting themselves on fire to keep others warm. And in doing so, they actually become more effective at genuine compassion, the kind that empowers rather than enables. Here's something that doesn't get discussed enough: the physical relief that comes with this awakening. Empaths who've been absorbing everyone's emotional chaos often carry it in their bodies. Unexplained fatigue, chronic pain, digestive issues, headaches. These aren't just random symptoms. They're the body's way of saying, this is too much. When the empath finally stops taking on energy that isn't theirs, the body responds. Sleep improves, energy returns. The mysterious symptoms often fade. It's like they've been carrying invisible weight for so long that they forgot what lightness feels like. But let's be honest about the challenging part. This awakening is lonely at first. The empath has to sit with the discomfort of disappointing people. They have to watch relationships dissolve that were only built on what they could provide. They have to resist the urge to fall back into old patterns when the guilt becomes overwhelming. This is where many empaths get stuck, bouncing between boundaries and people-pleasing, because the middle ground feels impossible to find. The ones who make it through, though, they emerge as something entirely different. Not an empath who's stopped caring, but an empath who's learned to care wisely. They can still feel deeply, but they're no longer controlled by those feelings. They can still offer support, but not at the expense of their own stability. They've learned that no is a complete sentence, that other people's reactions aren't their responsibility, and that true compassion sometimes looks like stepping back and letting people face their own storms. This final stage isn't really final at all. It's just the beginning of a more authentic way of moving through the world. The empath learns to trust their intuition about who deserves their energy. They become masters at distinguishing between genuine connection and energetic vampirism. They understand that their sensitivity is still a gift, but one that needs protection, boundaries, and intentional direction. So if you're going through this right now, if you've reached that day where you simply can't do it anymore, know that you're not broken. You're not becoming heartless. You're not losing your gift. You're actually meeting yourself for the first time, without all the noise and need and expectation that's been drowning out your own voice. And on the other side of this, there's a version of you that feels deeply without being destroyed by it, that cares without being consumed, that loves without losing themselves. That's not the death of empathy. That's its evolution. So tell me, have you experienced the shift? Are you in the middle of it right now? Drop a comment and let's talk about it. And if you know an empath who needs to hear this today, share this with them. Sometimes permission to stop carrying the world is the greatest gift you can give.